The International Criminal Police Organization, aka Interpol, is tasked with bringing to justice the worst criminals in the world. Today, we'll meet the most wanted Americans on that list. Number 10. Jason Derek Brown. Maybe you met this guy and you didn't even know it, although he might have introduced himself as Derek Brown, or maybe Greg Johnson, or Harlan Johnson, or Greg Harlan Johnson. You might have even met him in a French-speaking nation, seeing as he's fluent in French. He's also said to be armed and extremely dangerous, so perhaps it's better you didn't meet him. His story is a strange one. For a while, he walked and cycled around France as one of those smartly dressed Mormon missionaries you seem to see in just about every country. On returning to the US, he opened a couple of businesses that he ran out of Utah. There he spent big and pretended to live the life of a wealthy person, although much of his cash came from scams. It seems he must have run out of cash in 2004. That's the year he went out and bought a .45 caliber Glock pistol. Shortly after, on November 29th of that year, he watched a young armored car guard named Robert Keith Palomares collect the deposits from the Phoenix AMC Theater. It was then that a hooded man believed to be Brown unloaded his gun into him, shooting him 5 times in the head. The gunman then grabbed $56,000 cash and made a getaway using a bicycle. Fingerprints from the bike pointed to Brown, who was charged with first-degree murder and armed robbery. But where is he? Well, that's what the FBI and Interpol have been trying to figure out. The FBI knew he drove around the US for a while after he realized he was a wanted man, but then the agency said he became a ghost. Trouble is, he looks a bit like a scraggly-haired surfer dude, and there are plenty of them about. So there have been umpteen false sightings of Brown. Even one of Sean Penn's body doubles was arrested when he was mistaken for Brown. Where this shaggy lookalike is now is anyone's guess. There are theories stating he could have changed his name and be somewhere in a small Mormon community, or he's currently living in Quebec, Canada, or possibly as far away as France or Thailand. That's why Interpol has him on its red notice list. The FBI is offering a $200,000 reward for the capture of Brown, but as we said, he's dangerous, so shouldn't be approached. So you'll see now, some terrible people wanted by Interpol are not exactly in hiding. Number 9. John Lightus. In 2016, this convicted sex offender was found guilty of aggravated assault and kidnapping in what was an astonishingly violent crime involving a homeless pregnant woman in Florida. He'd been arrested for similar offenses twice in the US in 1986 and 2009. When the judge sentenced him this last time, he said he's not going to hurt anybody ever again. He might be in prison in the US, but the reason we told this story is this man is still wanted in Nicaragua, again for violent crimes. Just because you get sentenced in one country doesn't mean you're off the hook in another, so your name stays on the list. Okay, now for an extremely dangerous man who's been on the run for a long time. Number 8. William Bradford Bishop Jr. In 1976, this former United States Foreign Service officer shot and killed his wife, mother, and 3 sons. Even though he's now in his 80s, if he's alive and kicking, he's still called a dangerous fugitive by the FBI and is actively being looked for by Interpol. What went wrong with this guy is a bit of a mystery. He was highly educated, gaining a degree at Yale University in his younger years. He then started working for the U.S. Intelligence Services and later the U.S. State Department. He was useful, too, seeing as he's fluent in 5 languages: English, Italian, French, Serbo-Croatian, and Spanish. On March 1, 1976, he drew out a load of cash in the town where he lived in Maryland. He then bought a sledgehammer, a gas can, a shovel, and a pitchfork. He returned home and bludgeoned his wife to death. After that, he went looking for his mother while she was walking a dog, and he did the same to her. He then went back home and killed his kids. The FBI says he was prone to outbursts and didn't sleep very well. It's also said he suffered from depression, and to ease that, he drank vast amounts of scotch. He also took psychiatric medications and had spent some time at a mental institution prior to the murders. The question is, could he still be out there somewhere after all this time? The FBI thinks it's possible given he is intelligent and very savvy when it comes to outdoor survival. He has extensive camping and hiking experience in Africa and even flew planes there, so he could have easily gone off the grid and survived. He could be in Africa, but with those language skills of his, he could be anywhere. If you think that story's messed up, listen to this one. Number 7. Leo Frederick Burt. This is the only terrorist on the list, but we should say Interpol is currently looking for quite a few more. We should also point out right now that the majority of wanted people are on the list for sex offenses. Leo Frederick Burt's case is one that stands out. On August 24, 1970, a bomb went off at the University of Wisconsin-Madison campus, and a professor was killed. Others were injured too. It was soon discovered that the people behind this crime did it in protest of the university's military research during Vietnam. Many of you know that a lot of folks in the US weren't happy about the war, and that's why at the time of the university bombing, you would have seen students walking about carrying protest signs that read, "US out of Vietnam, smash Army math." 4 guys planted the bomb, with 3 of them eventually being arrested and serving time in prison. Bert was the one that got away. For 50 years, authorities have searched high and low for him, following leads that took them from Canada to Costa Rica. An FBI agent once said he's got to be worried every day that he's going to slip up and get caught. That's no way to live. His life was indeed wrecked after that crime. Once a young journalist with a bright future ahead of him and a close family he loved, he fell off the face of the planet. Wherever he is, he's in his 70s and likely not as fast on his feet. The FBI will still give anyone $150,000 for information that leads to his arrest. Now it's time to put a woman on the list, someone wanted for committing an outrageous crime. Number 6. Catherine Marie Kirkow. On June 3, 1972, Western Airlines Flight 701 set off from California on its way to Seattle. Aboard were Kathy Kirkow and her Army veteran boyfriend Roger Holder. Sometime into the journey, Holder passed a flight attendant a note that read, "Everyone except the captain will leave the cabin. There are 4 of us and 2 bombs. Do as you're told, and no shooting will take place." He then showed her a briefcase that had wires attached to it. The demand was for $500,000 in ransom and the release of a political activist named Angela Davis. Kirkow and Holder saw themselves as activists too, railing against racism in the USA and also the Vietnam War. By all accounts, after they dropped off the passengers in San Francisco, the two directed the flight to Algeria and on the way smoked some weed and joined the Mile High Club. Things didn't go too well there, and the pair left for France, where they were arrested. Holder was extradited to the US, but what happened to Kirkow has remained a mystery. She's still wanted on air piracy charges to this day. In 2019, the FBI stated that this woman was armed and dangerous. If you meet her, she might be going under the name of Ottilie Pesci or Janice Ann Forte. But that beautiful face of hers will have changed a bit as she's now 75. Now for something very different indeed. Number 5. Lori John Trites. This man used to be the head swim coach at a Pennsylvania college, but he was discovered doing something that appalled his students, the college, and just about everyone else who heard about what he'd done. When swimming practice was over, Trites would take videos of teens and women getting changed in the dressing rooms. Some women saw the cameras hidden in towels while they were undressing, so they handed it over to the most respectable person in the vicinity, the man they could trust, Coach Trites. He then tried to delete the content, but cops soon knew it was him who had planted the camera. His crimes came as a huge shock to the community, given that he had a solid reputation after founding the Trident Aquatic Club in Lancaster County. He was also friendly with many of the people at the local golf club, who also admired him. This was a guy that had accreditation with pretty much every swimming association in the US, and he was also a perv. He was charged in 1998, a year after the videos had been taken. As well as the 6 counts of violating Pennsylvania's wiretap law he was charged with, he was also charged with tampering with evidence for deleting some of the content on the tapes. Sometime later, he left all of his worldly belongings behind and headed to Trinidad. And that's where he might be now, possibly teaching swimming or golf. If you see him, he might be going under the name of Buddy. He's also hard to miss, given the fact that he is 6 feet 7 inches tall. While he didn't commit a violent crime, the FBI says he should be considered armed and dangerous. Who knows what a person will do if they think the jig is up? The next guy on the list was a cop himself, so understandably he doesn't want to go to prison. Number 4. Al Gherkin. In 2005, Gherkin was charged with the crime of stealing drugs from dealers on the streets while he was on the job as a police officer. No sooner than he was charged, he vanished. His last known address was in Hollywood, California, but his present address is a mystery. The FBI seems to think he might be in Turkey. For stealing heroin, cocaine, and marijuana with a couple of accomplices, he faces charges of drug conspiracy, possession with intent to deliver narcotics, and possession of a firearm while dealing narcotics. It was a simple setup the guys had. The accomplices would call up a dealer and say they wanted to buy a fairly large amount of drugs. When the exchange was about to happen, guess who would turn up and do a traffic stop? Gherkin. They all then sold the drugs and shared the spoils. As you'll see now, just as in that case, a lot of regular street crimes make their way onto Interpol's list. Number 3. Jason Liu. Like many young guys in the US, Liu made the sometimes fatal mistake of thinking it'd be a good idea to join a street gang and make mortal enemies of other gangs. That got serious on September 13, 2000 in Fullerton, California, when he and some other guys in his gang decided to go head-to-head with a rival gang. This was over an argument that had taken place between 2 rival gang members in a bar. Liu and his buddies were driving when they spotted the other gang. It was reportedly Liu who then shouted the words "blast them," and that happened, and it ended with 1 man dead and 3 others injured. Liu's buddies got some serious time in prison after that, but he's still on the run. It's thought that he might be in South Korea or Taiwan. Now back to someone who made it onto the FBI's top 10 most wanted people in America. Number 2. Robert William Fisher. This guy once belonged to the United States Navy. He tried to become a Navy SEAL, but after failing, he made his way in life with some decent jobs, such as stints as a firefighter and respiratory therapist. Fisher had a problem though, and that was controlling his attitude toward his wife and children. He even gave his son a hard time because he didn't like to hunt or fish as he did. A church-going man, from the outside things looked fine, but to people that knew him, he was a mess. Psychologists later said that childhood trauma over his parents' divorce and the fact that his wife was going to divorce him sent him over the edge. A long way over he went too. In 2001, he killed his wife and 2 children and blew up his house. He then vanished. Since he was a skilled outdoorsman, it was thought that for a while he was hiding out in forested areas in Arizona or perhaps even living in caves. His truck was soon found near Fort Apache Indian Reservation in Arizona, and he was spotted nearby by some walkers. In 2002, he got on the FBI's 10 Most Wanted list, and a $100,000 reward was offered for any information that might lead to his arrest. But even though police received hundreds upon hundreds of tip-offs, Fisher either remained out in the wilderness or started a new life somewhere. Given his survival skills, he could be in a remote part of the US or Canada. But even with those skills, it would be a long shot if he were still living without cash to his name in the back of beyond. On the FBI's website, it states that if he is still alive, he will no doubt be heavily armed, so approaching him would not be something that anyone should do. This last man wanted has to be the oldest guy ever to make the list, so even if he's caught, we doubt he'll serve much of his 280-year sentence. Number 1. Prakashanand Saraswati. This man offered people spiritual enlightenment, and as so often can be the case with powerful gurus who take people under their godlike wings, they exploit people's trust and do something terrible. In the 60s and 70s, Saraswati spent much of his time wandering alone in far-off regions in the Himalayas, finding himself in forests, learning how to devote his life to the eternal love and spirituality. When he emerged from out of nowhere, he started the Society of Divine Love in India in 1975. He wrote books including The Philosophy of Divine Love and opened centers to teach such love around the world. One of the centers became the largest Hindu temple in the USA, complete with an ashram on a huge plot of land. And that's still there, but it's distanced itself from its founder after he was charged with using his power to take advantage of some of the younger female members who stayed there. They came forward when they were adults, and what they said ended with the courts convicting Saraswati of 20 offenses. He was subsequently sentenced to 280 years in prison. Except he didn't spend one day in prison because he didn't even show up for his trial. This was back in 2011 when he was 82 years old. This man, said to be able to live in a state of conscious ecstasy, a man that can reach higher planes than the rest of us, was also capable of magically gliding through the hands of law enforcement. He might have had some people believe he could elevate them above their day-to-day state of consciousness, but when push came to shove, he was also able to make very down-to-earth plans with his followers to sneak into Mexico and somehow get over to India. He's one of the few people on the list that the FBI doesn't say is armed and dangerous, and at 92 it's a miracle he's still on the loose. According to US authorities, the reason the fondling guru is able to remain on the run is his dedicated devotees. The US Marshal's Office said, "There are people that we've talked to who are devoted followers of his, and they will sacrifice criminal charges and prosecution to help his flight." Now, listen to this unsolved mystery, brutal true story of what they didn't tell you about the Burger Chef massacre, or have a look at Hotel Where People Keep Dying.